All right, so today we're going to start the full contour wax up of tooth number 8. So what I want to start with when I'm doing this wax up is I want to start with the matrix system or matrix that I'm going to create, and might actually help if I draw this first. So let me just do that before we actually start the wax up. So what we're going to have is a tooth. I'm going to draw this in 2 dimensions here. We've got our tooth. This is our kind of makeshift crown preparation, and this would be our facial kind of surface going around. And then we've got our 2 adjacent teeth. Coming up as well. And one of the things when you were waxing up the MIF of tooth number 8, you probably noticed that obviously you have the lingual surface, you have some of that mesial wall, and then you have all of the distal surface. So you're really just adding on the mesial to get the contact and then filling in the gaps. With this one, we don't really have anything to fill in, so we need to create some sort of boundary for this preparation or for this wax up. So the first thing I'm going to do is build up wax, trying to create the contact here, and I'm probably going to go a little bit more incisal, and then I'm going to bring this down and just kind of create a thin wall coming up on the distal and on the mesial. Once I've got that wall in place, I'm going to place wax in the mid-buccal as well, or mid-facial. And I'm going to bring that wax up to about that same height. And what I'm going to do is in this area throughout the facial, even for this little strip, I'm going to create the heights of contour that I want. So I'm going to have my height of contour in the gingival third. I'm going to try to create the facial contour. Even on here, I'm going to slightly finish this as well in order to get these gingival and incisal embrasures to be a little bit more ideal. So I'm going to come in and just kind of like reposition this just a little bit in order to get this. And once I've got this frame done with these 3 strips, I'm going to start trimming them down just a little bit. And then I'm going to take wax and connect those pieces, creating my incisal edge. Once I have this framework, at that point, I can do a very similar thing on the lingual down to the cingulum on the central portion here. And because these are interproximal, I can then just connect all of this by filling in wax in this area in order to get the rest of that facial surface, much like we did with the MIF. If you don't have this framework, it becomes really challenging to kind of build the wax from there. So what you'll notice I'm going to do is I'm going to add wax to the side of the tooth. And this is a similar technique that we're going to use on the posterior teeth as well. We're going to create cuss tips, creating like little balls of wax, and then we're going to trim them back in order to create our cuss tips. And then we're going to connect all of those cuss tips as far as the marginal ridges and the cuss bridges are concerned. So we'll kind of connect everything at that point. And I've had students ask me why I jump back and forth between like the distal and the mesial, or if I'm doing a posterior tooth, why I jump from like one cusp to another. It's just because I'm impatient and I don't want to wait for the wax to cool. So I move to the other spot and then add wax, and then when I come back, the wax is already cooled. If you want to work a little bit slower, you can do that. But also for the demo, I don't want to do that either. So we can see I've done a decent job filling in this embrasure. I need to add a little bit more to kind of close the contact a little bit on the distal, and I need to add to the incisal. I've got that distal incisal embrasure that's a little too open, so I need to add wax distally as well towards the incisal portion, but then I need to make it a little bit longer. So I'm just going to take this out again. some of this up just a little bit. So from here, I have a decent framework where I can start adding wax. Again, to close the contact, increase the incisal edge just a little bit, add wax across the facial in order to kind of get it close to that facial contour that I have. Obviously, I'm going to need to add a little bit more towards the incisal, but you know, I've kind of worked a little bit on the height of contour on that facial surface just to get that a little bit closer to ideal. So once we have this framework, we can start working on filling in on the facial. And then on the lingual, we're going to do the same thing. But now that we have the framework, it's going to be a little bit easier. We're going to add wax to the mesial marginal ridge, so we can add to create this rounded kind of marginal ridge. And then we're going to keep adding more to bulk out the cingulum. Do the same thing on the distal to bulk out the cingulum, and then just kind of fill in the middle portion to create the fossa there. And I can continue doing this wax up. I want to meet quickly with the faculty while you grab your supplies and get set to go. I'll meet with the faculty, then we'll come back out. I'll post the assignments and the times. You'll be meeting with Dr. Cronin in the back because Dr. Tetzo's out today. And I'll post those, so just make sure to write them down. And then I'll finish this wax up while you're working. So for those of you who just want to continue to work and don't want to watch this, you won't have to. All right, any questions on this framework or kind of how I approach starting this wax up? All right, wonderful. I will be right back in a minute.